Steve Yu was on his way to becoming one of South Korea's most famous K-pop acts, if only he hadn't decided to go against the system, which would eventually cost him everything. Steve Yu suddenly lost his career and got banned from South Korea almost 20 years ago. He fights for his return to this day, but will he ever win? Steve Yu started pursuing his passion for music in California, where he recorded demo tapes of his rapping and dancing and sent those to Brothers Entertainment, and after a while, the company scouted him. He left California to prepare for his debut in Korea. After making his debut in 1997, Steve Yu's career started more than perfectly. His debut song Gawi gained a lot of popularity and attracted thousands of fans. Throughout 1997, Steve Yu won Best Newcomer of the Year awards at a lot of award ceremonies. Another one of his singles, West Side, sold 1 million copies, which for that time was a massive achievement. Not only did he make great music, Steve Yu also had this bad boy charisma, which made a lot of people fall in love with him. Up until 2002, Steve Yu was quite literally taking Korea's entertainment industry by storm, and he seemed unstoppable. He also began to expand his activities to China and Taiwan. Steve Yu, better known by the name Yoo Sung-joon in Korea, was a household name after only a couple years after his debut. I'm sure we all know that Korean men have to enlist in the military between the ages of 18 and 28. Much like it is today with idols with dual citizenship, people back then were also curious if Steve Yu was going to enlist, as only Korean citizens have to enlist in the military. Unfortunately, Steve Yu's life was about to change forever after he made his decision. Banned forever. In 2001, Steve Yu actually suffered a back injury and as a result had to undergo surgery. But when Steve Yu went in for a health checkup that's mandatory for the military, where they decide if you're physically and mentally well to enlist, he was actually found unfit for the regular military service and was supposed to work as a public service worker. Working as a public service worker can be compared to a 9-to-5 job, as people are usually allowed to go home. Now, 2002 is when the real controversy begins. Just before he was about to be drafted to the military, Steve Yu's US citizenship was finalized, and the South Korean government didn't like this. The Korean government saw Steve Yu finalizing his US citizenship as an act of desertion, and just like that, Steve Yu was banned from stepping foot in South Korea. Steve Yu was put on the government's ban list, which prohibited him from entering South Korea permanently. The public was absolutely outraged, and their love quickly turned into deep hatred. When he was asked why he decided to finalize his US citizenship, Steve Yu said that he was planning to enlist in the military but changed his mind last minute. After he was banned, Steve Yu tried to appeal a couple more times to go back to South Korea but was denied every single time. Following the ban, Steve Yu upped and moved to China, where he did his best to establish a new life for himself. He didn't go back to being a singer right away. Instead, he went on to pursue an acting career. He earned a role in an untitled Taiwanese drama, and in June of 2008, he signed a 15-year contract with Jackie Chan's entertainment company to become an actor. Ever since being under that agency, he starred in movies such as Little Big Soldier, Chinese Zodiac, Man of Tai Chi, and picked up singing and dancing again. There were a lot of rumors about Steve Yu's possible return, as people conspired that the ban was lifted. According to Ilgan Sports, a supposed close advisor of Steve Yu stated, "The prohibition of entry into Korea against Yoo Sung-joon will be lifted this month. Through help from his current agency in China, JC Group International, with CEO Jackie Chan, he is planning to make a comeback within the first half of this year." Yoo Sung-joon still misses his Korean fans and the Korean stage. He longs to return to Korea. Soon after, in December 2013, the Military Manpower Administration in Korea came out to completely shut down these rumors, saying it has no plans to approve the lift of his ban. A representative of the Korea Immigration Bureau stated, "Yoo Sung-joon is a foreigner with a US citizenship. The government decides whether to allow foreigners entry to the country. Information regarding the clearing of his entry ban cannot be revealed because it is personal information." It's obvious that this news was fake, because there was no way for Steve Yu's close advisor to obtain this information. The final statement from the Military Manpower Administration said, "As someone who breached military service law and obtained US citizenship, he cannot be the object of reconsideration. It is something that absolutely cannot be approved. There has been no change from our original stance." It was in 2015 when Steve Yu finally revealed his side of the controversy and also addressed the rumors after staying silent for 13 years. During an interview with Africa TV, Steve Yu kneeled down in front of the camera and said, "I am kneeling, asking for forgiveness. I want to talk about my true emotions. I don't want to make excuses. This is my time to apologize for my wrongdoings to you all. I want to talk completely honestly about what's in my heart." When he was asked what he would do if he could go back in 2002, before bursting into tears, Steve shared, "Of course I would enlist. The decision I made, I didn't know it would give rise to such a controversy. If I could go back, I would enlist without a second thought." Steve Yu also addressed the rumors about him wanting to return to Korea, since at that time he was 39 years old, old, and the max age limit for military enlistment is 38. He said, "I have gone through a variety of emotions. I have wondered how to convey my situation, but whenever I tried to, it wasn't conveyed well. Whatever kind of interview I did, it wasn't explained properly. Even if I did an hour-long interview, the actual article was quite short with one headline. My emotions weren't conveyed faithfully. Whatever I said, I was hurtfully criticized. I don't have much confidence. I don't know how to resolve this situation. I have barely looked at Korea for the past 13 years. I felt that was the only way I could bear it." Steve Yu also shared that the main reason behind wanting to resolve this situation was his son, who always got emotional whenever he would talk about Korea. Steve Yu actually tried to enlist in the military again after 12 years, and he tried to give up his US nationality and return to Korea as a naturalized citizen as well. He soon found out that he was actually not liable for conscription, since the new law raised the overseas Koreans' age limit from 36 to 38 and applied to only those born after 1980. Steve Yu was born in 1976. The decision to take on his US citizenship actually didn't come from Yu himself, but it was his father's idea. Steve flew to America after finishing his Japanese concerts months before his supposed enlistment to see his father for the last time in a couple years, and that seems to be when the end began. Lastly, he finished the interview by speaking sincerely to the Korean public. "I want to go back to Korea through whatever means possible. I'm so sorry for causing a controversy. I genuinely apologize for letting you down and disappointing you." In July of 2019, Yu was a small step closer to being able to return back to Korea in a surprising court ruling. South Korea's highest court shared that it was actually unlawful to deny a visa to Yu. Yu filed a lawsuit in 2015 trying to change the decisions of the South Korean consulate in the US, which had denied him a visa. Yu was already dismissed twice by lower courts, arguing that his return would demoralize troops and provoke teenagers to evade conscription. There was also a survey held in 2019 which showed that almost 70% of South Koreans thought his ban should be upheld. In March of 2020, the court ruled in favor of Yu, stating that the refusal to grant him a visa had procedural flaws, but it still didn't mean his entry should be permitted. Following this statement, Yu filed a lawsuit against the diplomatic mission in Los Angeles for the visa issuance denial. Then it all spiraled downwards in December of 2020 when the new Fair Military Act was proposed, also known as Yu Sung-joon Prevention Act. This prompted Yu to come online and express his rage publicly. And was he angry? Let me tell you that. Yu started off his video by saying, "Did I commit a political crime? Did I or someone? Am I a predator? Why are politicians so eager to ban a celeb named Yu Sung-joon from entering Korea? Do congressmen really have nothing better to do? Are you that pissed to see me? You guys think he didn't even join the army but came to Korea and made easy money all while you guys made him a superstar?" He then continued his speech visibly angry. "Yes, I didn't keep my promise to enlist, but is that such a crime? Do you guys keep all your promises? I'm trying to enter the country to explain why I didn't join the army, but the government banned me and I wasn't allowed to step on Korean soil for nearly 19 years. Now you're going to propose a law to ban me completely?" Not a lot of people had understanding of Yu's frustrations. Some of the comments said, "What you broke isn't a promise, but a law. You dodged a prison sentence because you are a US citizen." And, "This is getting old. Why does he so eagerly want to come back? He deserves no sympathy. He knows that Koreans take military service seriously. If the Yu Sung-joon Prevention Act bill would be passed, it would provide more definite grounds for entry restrictions against those who dodge their military services through changing their nationality like you." But it looks like this story has more twists than you might think. The hidden truth. The internet can be a serious help for fighting for justice. Now, none of this means it will guarantee you an entry into Korea again, and it also doesn't have to be 100% true, but it's definitely worth mentioning. An account on YouTube pointed out a lot of interesting things. The account started off by saying that Yu actually didn't dodge his military enlistment as he literally didn't have one. Allegedly, he wasn't mandated to serve in the Korean military according to the military law on green card holders. He was going to voluntarily enlist in the military on behalf of abandoning his green card and US citizenship. The user also thinks there was some kind of pressure from the media in 2001, a year after he started his application for US citizenship. Allegedly, before 2001, Yu never mentioned anything about serving in the military, and even announced that he wouldn't be able to enlist as he didn't want to abandon his green card. The user even managed to find one of Steve Yu's announcements back from 1999, where there's supposedly no mention of enlisting and planning to abandon the green card. They also pointed out that all of Steve Yu's family lived in in California since 1989 and that they applied for their US citizenship together after living in the US for 11 years, 5 years after they obtained their green cards. The user also stressed that the overall time Steve Yu spent in Korea was only 25 months and that he spent most of the time in LA with his family during his idol years. Then there's the fact that he lost his Korean citizenship automatically as soon as his US citizenship application was approved, which means that he was actually not allowed to have dual citizenship because he was not born in the US. He was no longer eligible to serve in the Korean army. The way he was deported was suspicious as well. Steve Yu was basically given zero chance to officially explain his last-minute decision, as the interviews scheduled for that day were immediately canceled. His interviews with the media also seemed to be heavily edited to leave out the parts where he shared he made such a decision not to have his green card terminated and not having to start the whole application process for a new green card. The government also seemed to have banned his entry without proceeding with any legal procedure or proving that he was guilty. Evidence has been presented in the court showing that Steve Yu had no intention to dodge military duty, but it was never taken into account. Lastly, Steve Yu has shown numerous times that he truly regrets his decision and even said he wishes he could turn back time so he could enlist. His side of the story has never been properly told because the Korean media has seemed to spread a lot of rumors that affected him negatively. It would be totally understandable if Steve Yu didn't show how regretful and heartbroken he was about not being able to return to Korea, but I think it's time he was finally allowed to return to the country where his dreams first came true. Thank you for watching, have a great day!